And we talk as ever about the off-the-field news and things coming up. I'll be honest, I wasn't really happy when you tweeted yesterday that Alexander Isak is not with the squad, but then Arne gets interviewed and obviously says, very particularly, it's better to have him a full session rather than 5 or 10 minutes of playing. And people jump on that, don't you? He's ready to play at least 45 minutes, seeing if we'll use that on Wednesday or Saturday. As much as we wanted to see him yesterday, it is the right call to manage him this way, isn't it?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, Slot made a really good point as well about kind of Johan Wissa, who had been through a similar situation, being on strike at Brentford, then played 2 games for his country, and now he's out for 4 or 5 weeks, isn't he? So Liverpool definitely don't want that. You don't need to be kind of pushing him to situations where he gets injured. And as he says, yesterday he comes on for 10 minutes maybe at the end to try and win you the game. But, the alternative is he does an hour and a half's worth of training and real physical work to try and get him up to speed. That's surely more beneficial in the long term, isn't it? So, I think it was the right decision personally. And shame not to see him make a little cameo, but Slot seemed pretty keen to kind of get him in the squad on the midweek game in the Champions League, and of course Liverpool will have a bigger bench there, so he absolutely will be involved, I'd expect. That is exciting, and Liverpool won anyway, so the right decision in the end, I think, and very much still looking forward to seeing him, but wasn't to be yesterday.
True, and Arne Slot's answered more questions about him than we've actually seen him on the field, because I know you will have been part of this, but the embargo was all about Alexander Isak, wasn't it? And talked about him, we've got to build him in, that he isn't the best striker in the world at the moment because he's been out for 4 months, and was really keen to emphasise that. I'm almost jumping the timeline a little bit. When do you think we're going to actually start to see him regularly in the rotation?
I think, I don't know, there's 6 more games now before the international break. I kind of feel like I would be, I don't know really, because he kind of surprised me when he said like he might be ready for 45 minutes quite soon. Yeah. So maybe do we see him get a start in the Southampton game, maybe, with it being a home game, there's no travel involved, you can just, you can maybe just start him for 45 minutes in that to get some fitness in him. Because my other feeling on it, aside from that League Cup game, is maybe we wouldn't see him start this side of the next international break, to be honest. But, just with Slot saying that, maybe kind of clouds things a little for me. So, I kind of lean on that side. And maybe if he does get a start, it'll be against Southampton and they'll otherwise kind of ease him in. But then the aim will be the other side of the international break for him to basically start games going forward. So, that's how I feel about it. But we'll kind of see really with that one. It's an interesting one, and I really hope we get to see him on the pitch at least in the Atletico game. Not least because I think Liverpool might need him. I mean, we know how good they are defensively, and you need your top class players to disorganise that. So it's going to be a slow process, but I definitely think we can say with some confidence, regardless of how this next few games pans out. He might start before then or whatever, but definitely the other side, the next international break, I think, is when he will be fully integrated and you won't have kind of fitness concerns around him, I'd say.
True. It's insane. So I think it's 6 games in 16 days the Reds are about to embark on. So, we're going to see him at some point, definitely. And the other thing, I mean, he talked about his fitness, but actually there was another bit from the embargo I wanted to ask you about, because he almost gave us a maths equation, didn't he, Arne Slot, where he said sales and success equals spending. And that is, to be honest, because people are obviously jumping on, will this be a continuation? Are we expecting big money signings every window? It almost intimated that it's possible as long as we're successful, and sales are going to be key behind it as well, didn't he, the way he laid it out?
Yeah, this is it. I mean, this is why we could always kind of promise that this was going to be a big summer, because you knew there were going to be some big sales there to fund a lot of it. And obviously Liverpool had been successful. They kind of saved up the money as well. So that gave them this really big pot that they could dip into and make a lot of big purchases. So, he's absolutely right. It's not like this window has been completely, out of keeping with FSG's general approach. It's very much aligned with it, I guess. So, he's right on that front. What I would say is, I don't think the next couple of summers are going to be anywhere near like this one. I think they've done a lot of business for the long term, and now it'll just be a case of kind of one in, one out, and kind of, do we need to make a tweak in this position? And someone else might feel like they want to move on to try and play more elsewhere or whatever, and then they'll need replacing. But I think that the core of a squad that's going to be together for the next, I'd say, 3 seasons at least, is very much in place now. So I don't think we'll see anything like the kind of outlay that we've seen this summer for a while now.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. And we will talk about a few moves as well. But I suppose with the games coming thick and fast, and Atletico on Wednesday, which we'll get to, Curtis Jones, another injury this way. Like, do we know anything about it or how long? Because I know Arne Slot mentioned that, almost a surprise that we wouldn't know, but there wasn't really many details given about how long, what it is type of thing.
No, unfortunately not. No one kind of has to follow up in the open on that. And obviously I can't do that because I'm in the embargo, so we don't get to asking that around it. And then the embargo went down a different route, really. So it would have been out of place in there to ask, really. So we didn't, unfortunately, get more details. But of course, there's a press conference, isn't there, on Tuesday? So, hopefully get a bit of an update on that. In fact, there'll be open training as well. So we'll see, maybe he can be involved, and, hopefully. But we'll find out more about that tomorrow, no doubt. But hopefully not too long. He didn't make it sound like it was terrible, but it could be a couple of weeks or whatever. So I'm just speculating at the moment, but we'll see.
Yeah, maybe the international break might have worked in our favour. We'll have to see on this. And I suppose the other interesting comments, and it was from his embargo, he was honest about it, wasn't he? Same with Mark Guehi, use that word, ridiculous about tonight. We were close to saying it. I think everyone knew what happened. He did it well. He kind of nicely navigated the question about would you go back in Jan and the end of the summer, which has been people's main topic. He dealt with that one quite well, didn't he?
Yeah. No, we always try our best to kind of get him to give up something on transfers, but not managed to do it yet. I thought it was interesting. He was open about the fact that Liverpool were close. He didn't need to admit it, and he generally doesn't admit even if it's a really obvious situation like that. But he was quite open about the fact that he really liked the player as well. So maybe that's kind of a little public message to Mark Guehi as well, of kind of, hang in there, we're still coming for you. We still really appreciate you and wanted to sign you. So, that was kind of an interesting aspect. Obviously, in terms of what that means for whether he comes in January or whatever, not quite clear at the moment. And I know there've been those reports suggesting that there's no chance Liverpool will do that, but I don't think you could rule it out completely just yet. We'll see in terms of that.
And I suppose, and I know you've been speaking on other podcasts, which was a disgrace, but we'll pick that up at a later time, about Ibrahim Konate and that. And I think as people that naturally, this could just rumble on and on because of the nature of these type of contract situations. But it is all still, it's just open. Like, Konate and his agent are talking to Liverpool, clearly other clubs at the same time, as is their right, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. There's like a desperation to kind of be the first to be miserable about it and say, oh, well, it's done, and he's clearly just going to go to Real Madrid now. But it's not done. So, that's not... So if I say it's not done now on this podcast and someone pulls it out and they'll say, oh, David Lynch is saying there's a chance that Konaté still signs for Liverpool, and then people go, well, he's definitely going to sign for Liverpool then. He's saying he's optimistic and that it's going to happen. And it's like, well, no, all the outcomes are on the table and we can accept that. And you don't get points or any kind of kudos for being the first to say, just because you're a negative person, that, oh, he's done and he's definitely going to Real Madrid. Well, yeah, you might be right, and fair play to you if you guess correctly at this point that is going to be the outcome here. But genuinely, all outcomes are on the table at the moment. Konaté is, as far as I'm aware, and this is sourced on both sides of the debate, it is still in some sort of talks with Liverpool. They're not at an agreement yet, but that it can happen. It could be happening right now as we talk now, that someone kind of compromises on what they want and the agreement gets done. So, these things, it's until it's done, and it's not like at the moment he has totally told Liverpool he's not going to sign and he's going to Real Madrid. That has 100% not happened. And, I feel like if Liverpool gave him the right amount of money, that he would be happy to stay. But they're not at that agreement, and he feels a little bit undervalued, and Liverpool feel like they've got a red line that they don't want to go over. And that's contract talks, by the way, because the same happened with Van Dijk and Salah. and they both got resolved in a positive way. All that talk about them having signed it months before and keeping it quiet was absolute nonsense. So those negotiations were going on till the last. So yeah, like I say, people might want to jump the gun and say it's done and say it's exactly like Trent situation, and then they will never mention again that they said that if it resolves its way in the way that Van Dijk and Salah's does. So everything's on the table at the moment, and I'd beware anyone making any kind of concrete pronouncements about it at this stage, or until it's done, which decisions might be made either way in the next couple of months, but we aren't there at this very moment as we speak.
Nah, we'll await developments. Feels a bit like Groundhog Day, doesn't it, from last summer, and see what comes. And I mean, I've got my little cursor there over the main man and Arne Slot, and I'd really planned to ask you about this, but it's naturally things that are starting to just, I've seen it creep in this morning. It's easy to forget that people in the last 2 years of their contract, Arne Slot, Richard Hughes, Michael Edwards, those will be priority for the top level. As much as we talk about players, they will be right up there for FSG to sort, won't they?
Yeah, 100%. I'll be amazed if Slot doesn't have a contract offer on his desk between now and the end of the season, and the same for all the kind of hierarchy above him as well in terms of Edwards and Hughes, as you suggest. Obviously 3-year contracts to start with, but it's been such a success, I think, the last period that they've been in charge of things, both on the transfers front, in and out, and obviously what's going on the field that Arne Slot is overseeing, that it would be absolute madness. So I think you say with confidence, really, that contract offers will be made before the end of the season. And yeah, hopefully they're all happy to sign them because they're all doing fantastic jobs.
Yeah, if we can keep it as is, that is all we are looking for. We'll see if anything develops that way.